wanted a music stand. Let me get you. Good evening, everybody, and welcome. Thank you. Is this on? Barely. Um, so it's great to have everyone here tonight. Thank you so much for coming out for our third of our four last lectures. We took a little break last week for our community Seder, and thanks everybody for coming last week to that and providing food. I hope that was those of you who were there. I hope it was a wonderful time, and we're excited about working with Rabbi Devora in the future. But tonight we're back in our kind of our groove for the last lecture, and we're incredibly excited to hear Rich Wayman share his story and journey in faith and in life, and again another sort of one of those boxes that are getting ticked from one of the sort of the gaps from last year's series. Rich has a great deal of tenure here at the church. He's served on a numerous number of committees and ministries and has been moderator of the church. I was telling him before, I can't think of anyone in the church who is more universally respected and liked, and whose wisdom and insight is sought after. And it's just really a pleasure, Rich. Thank you so much for sharing with us. So I'm going to start us off with a word of prayer and then turn it over to Rich. After Rich's presentation, we'll have a time for Q&A, and then those of you who would like to stick around for a meditative kind of prayer time, we'll be here in the sanctuary for a few minutes afterwards to do that. So thanks again for being here. So let's just begin with a word of prayer, and then we'll turn it over to Rich for our lecture tonight. Loving and gracious God, we thank you for this beautiful day, for it is truly the day that you have made. And we thank you for all the many blessings in it, those that surprised us, those that were prayed for and hoped for. And thank you for bringing us here safe and sound this evening. As we gather in your beloved community, and we turn to take another step on our Lenten journey, we thank you for this opportunity to hear from our brother Rich and his amazing journey in life with you. May he be blessed in this time, and may we be blessed in hearing his story as we reflect on who we are together, and who you are in our life. So be with him and be with us, and we pray this in your son's holy name. Amen. And everyone, I'd like to welcome Rich Wayman to our last lectures. Yay!
Does everybody think that they're looking really spiffy right now? Because you're going to be on the internet. So, and the second thing is I'm having a contest. I'll explain a little bit more later, but the contest is not to bribe you guys to try and listen more carefully. It's more that I have another intention at the end. So a little background about my faith journey, and I also named it so far. I know this is supposed to be a last lecture, but I don't think I'm near the point where I'm going to be at my end point, so that's why I said so far. But a little bit of background about me and my family. So the first thing to know about me is I was born on Easter, so the Easter Bunny brought me instead of the stork. And another thing to know about me is it happened a little bit after, if there was a sunrise service, the time of day that I was born. And I do not claim that I have any special divine intervention because I was born on Easter, but I think it was a good coincidence. And for the people that like doing math word problems, my birthday was on Easter 3 times from the time I was born until age 12. But it hasn't occurred since then. So here's a picture of my family that I think some of you recognize some of the people here, but this is my step-grandmother, my real grandfather on my father's side, my grandfather on my mom's side, my mom, then my nephew Eric, my niece Lara, my other nephew David, my brother Steve, his wife Maureen, and then I'm kind of hiding in the back. I put the 2 pictures up because they were taken at the same time, but I think my dad took this picture, and I think my mom took this picture, so it's basically the same people over again. It's basically showing 4 generations of Waymans, but it went down to 3 generations a few years ago when all 3 of my grandparents had passed away, and then that made me then to be the second wave of the generations. But in early February, Lara had a little baby boy, so we're back up to 4 generations. She and her husband are in Sydney, Australia, so it might be a little while till I can actually go see him and meet Joshua. These are pictures of the 2 houses I lived in up through high school. The house over here is a house we lived in when I was born, and the house on the right is the one we moved to when I was in 3rd grade. Those are the addresses up there. At the time, that was about the time that Gloria Steinem was becoming popular with Women's Lib. And I know one of the requirements when we moved from the one house to the other house was that my dad could walk to the train station. And the reason for that was my mom didn't want to be one of the housewives that sat at the train station at night to pick my dad up to drive her home. So and we actually moved 1 block closer, so between 7 East Elm and 12 East Oak is 1 block. And I also remember when I was living in 7 East Elm, I was kind of horrified, amazed when I found out another town had an Elm Street. I kind of thought that where I lived was unique, and my mom, she was pretty independent too. She worked as a substitute teacher, and she got to the point where she was the #1 teacher called in the district if anybody got went out and sick or she had long-term assignments, which was good and bad for me because she knew all my teachers. But I was a good student, so I think in the long term, I think it was okay. So for my faith journey, I thought that this was a really good definition of faith. Now, faith is the substance of things hoped for, evidence of things not seen, from Hebrews 11, verse 1. Faith is a connecting power into the spiritual realm, which links us with God and makes him become a tangible reality to the sense perception of a person. Faith is the basic ingredient to begin with a relationship with God. In addition to that definition, I believe that faith is a choice that you do by free will. It should not be forced on people. And God will know your intent if you believe in him, her, or if you don't. And I also think God has a master plan for the people that believe in him and have faith. I don't think I could understand it if it was even explained to me. But part of the reason I believe that is, there's a wide variety of people that have different faiths. In fact, at my previous position, I worked with 3 guys who believed that there was 144,000 spots in heaven for people that weren't included in this 144,000 people, that they would basically stay on earth for their entire life. I never quite understood that. I didn't believe it, but they were pretty fundamentalist type people. So, and hopefully God is directing me to do my part, and because I am definitely a believer. So that's part of my faith path. This is a little bit more background. This is an early journey. This is the first church that I went to. A couple of interesting things are, it's a UCC church, so I think I'm one of the more unusual people here that hasn't had another faith background. Mine's always been from the UCC. But I was born, baptized, confirmed, and was a member at this church through the middle of high school. As far as for my faith journey, my childhood best friend, I think, had a lot to do with some of my beliefs today. He was my best friend from second grade through freshman year in high school. It turns out, we were best friends, and, we talked about girls and all that kind of stuff, but freshman year in college, he was my roommate, and most weekends he was heading up to Chicago. And at the time, he told me he was going to meet up with Harriet. It turns out about halfway through the year, I went up to Chicago with him, and he was actually going up to see Henry. And he came out as being gay at that point. So, but it was real interesting in my perspective, just in the times, I think, wasn't really accepted to come out as gay at the time. In fact, he was teased a little bit, and I think I was teased a little bit just because of my friendship with him. But I think now that kind of makes me more accepting of the LGBT community. In fact, when I was talking to another friend in college, he actually came out too and said that he was gay, but he said if he hadn't talked to me, he wouldn't have come out. So I always thought that I was kind of a good listener, and I think that that is one example of that. I've always had a little hard time with my medical, I don't know if I call them uniquenesses, conditions, abnormality, or diseases. I think if as a doctor it would be diseases. I consider myself to be a healthy person, but I have these, quote, differences from other people. As a child, the first thing I noticed was I had vitiligo, which is areas in your skin where you don't have any pigment. They're kind of white. But the only real thing that's ever happened to me because I've had that is I lost my wallet in Mission Bay one time and walked around for about 4 hours trying to find it and ended up with third-degree sunburn. So after that, I would use like SPF 50 every 45 minutes that I was outside near the water. Then the second thing that happened, I had a little bit of muscle abnormality as a child where my leg would cramp up in the middle of the night and I'd wake up with pain, and it'd take everything I had just to kind of straighten it out and relax it. But then the biggest one that came was when I was diagnosed as diabetic. And at the time I was diagnosed as diabetic, I set the record at my primary care physician for cholesterol was at 650, and my triglycerides were at 4,200, which is pretty high. In fact, one nurse told me that my blood got kind of stuck in their stirring machine because it was so thick. But very quickly after I went on insulin therapy, everything returned to relative normal. I have a little bit of high cholesterol still that I take medication for. And I would say probably the only side effect I've had of having diabetes for many, many years is a little bit of neuropathy in my feet. But my primary physician said for my age, I'm probably right on you know, the curve for, quote, normal people. Also in my 20s, early 30s, I developed a wandering right eye called strabismus, and that really hasn't bothered me. I think it bothers people I'm talking to more than it bothers me, but usually what it means is if my eyes are wandering off, I'm concentrating harder on what you're saying. It's not that I'm going off to outer space or something like that. And then what came out of the muscle abnormalities is I have a thing what's known as Brody myopathy, and it's pretty rare. It's supposedly only 1 in 10 million people have it. It's basically I'm missing 2 genes, and it's only really supposed to affect your outer skeletal muscles. So as far as my heart goes, I think I'm in pretty good shape with that. So like I'm saying, I have all these things that I think if you just saw a list, you'd think I'm in a deathbed someplace. But overall, you know, I think I've been able to do most everything I wanted to do in life. And then recently, I think most of the people here have seen me wearing a mask, and for still some unknown reason, my white blood cells dipped down last summer. The great thing, I think, is I made it through this entire flu season without getting sick. So what the really long-term effects are of that, I'm not quite sure. And then if I want to be complete, a couple other little things I have. I see reds differently in my left and right eye. There's another member of church that sees blues differently, but I won't say the name of the person just due to all the HIPAA requirements in life these days. So, also my left leg is about 1/8 of an inch longer than my right leg, and I do prefer vanilla over chocolate. So, but as far as my faith journey, I think I've been very pragmatic, and you know, being an engineer, I do what I'm supposed to, and you know, I think basically I'm living a normal life. So it kind of gets to me when people ask if I have disease or if I'm sick, and I don't guess I really consider I'm sick. So currently where I am in my faith journey is I'm a member of KCC. I've been a member of KCC for over half my existence. Part of the reason I'm here is when I first started looking for churches, I went to Mission Hills UCC. I was there for about a month, and they had this program called the Partnership Church Swap, Pulpit Swap. So at that time I said, oh, there's a church in Kensington. It's a little bit closer to my house. So I came over here and heard one of their sermons. And also I met Ruth Kabler, who is Malleol's mother, back in the balcony back there. I kind of snuck in the balcony, but she was so friendly, and she remembered me when I came back a second or third time. I think that was some of the main reasons. Plus, I liked the ministers at the time, both George Barber and Linnea Lindsay, so that's why I joined this church. And one kind of little tidbit is the day I joined the church is the same day that Bob Apgar joined the church, so you know it's been a little while. And the interaction with the members has kept me going and coming back here, and you know, I'm still glad I'm a member here. There's 2 topics I want to talk to you about in my faith journey, what I've learned and what I'm working on. The first one is gratitude. And in gratitude, I kind of break it up into a 4-level process. The first is having gratitude for breathing continuously, your heart's beating. But I think the breath is special because I consider it kind of the link between your body and your mind. A lot of things the breath can do. If you're breathing hard like that, your mind goes into a fight or flight mode, and it gets real hard to concentrate. But then if you take, you know, slow in and out breaths, everything kind of slows down. I think your body slows down, and I definitely think that there's some sort of interaction between the two. The second I call is kind of the inner gratitude, and to me it's exhibited by your self-love or your self-esteem. That you have forgiveness of yourself when you make mistakes, you love yourself, and you're able to go out and do things and not feel subconscious about it. Then the next level is the physical world, where I had a diabetic counselor that says he knows you're going to cheat on your diet. That's a given. The secret is when you do cheat to stop and really enjoy it, and don't be hard on yourself while you're doing it. And I also like to add to that thing what I call marginal utility. It's like if you have a piece of cheesecake in front of you that you're dying to eat, you take that first bite, it's really, really good. You take the second bite, it's almost as good, but not quite as good. You take the third bite, and it's good, but it's not really good. And then after the third bite, you're kind of just finishing it because it's on your plate. So if you can kind of limit yourself to only doing those first three bites, I think you're satisfying your craving for wanting what you want, but you're not going too far. As far as the spiritual level, I think everything comes from God and returns to God. So everything that you have as far as possessions don't mean a whole lot compared to all the experiences you can have and interactions with people. And that's where I try and put my gratitude for. These are just kind of a list of the things that I am grateful for. First is God and Christianity, the spiritual. I have an amazing family. Some of the members are here. In the community, I consider KCC to be a big part of the community. Friends that I have from a long time ago. I'll get into that a little bit more later. I've had a successful career. I'm real happy with my genes, even though I have these medical uniquenesses. I think everything I have, my heart, my brain, the physical stuff around it, as far as the vitiligo through diabetes, etc., is a lot smaller consideration than the heart and the mind. And I'm also very grateful for medical advances, things like insulin. When I first became diabetic was the time that they were switching from insulin that came out of beef and pork, and they had a more limited supply of it. They came up with a process that used some sort of bacteria that produced basically this human equivalent of it. I'm real happy with the pump. The pump acts pretty close, I think, to what a pancreas would do. It's probably not quite as good, but overall, I think I've been doing really well health-wise. And also the blood glucose monitors. When I was first diagnosed with diabetes, at that point, people were using urine to try and figure out what their blood sugar was, and there was like a 2 to 3 hour time delay and not very much accuracy. You would look at the colors. Fortunately, I got put on a study and went directly to the blood glucose monitor. And then also all the gene testing I've gone through to kind of answer some questions as far as what's going on with my muscles and other things. So. Also, what I wanted to talk to you about is I think time is a resource that I don't think a lot of people give tribute to that or think about it very much. I think most people think about life resources if they're a faith-type person, that God, family, friends, their possession, their wealth, and their education provided them with life resources. But I think people don't really plan their time, or they enjoyed as much as they should be. Two quotes that I really like are, "Yesterday's past, tomorrow's a mystery, and today is a gift." That is why it's called the present. So I think too many people are thinking about what they did wrong in the past or what they could have done differently, or they worry about what can be coming up in the future. So I think the less you spend your time and resources thinking about that kind of thing, that you can enjoy the present more. And I definitely think over the last 10 to 15 years, me myself have done that. And I also like the second quote, that the same letters with radically different meanings, you're either nowhere or you're now here. I think greater than 10, 15 years ago, I had more of a monkey mind, kind of, I had all these to-do lists going around in my head. I was thinking, what was I going to be doing tomorrow? What was I going to have for dinner? What things do I pick up here or that? And I think society in general, with the quote multitasking going on, a lot more of the younger people are actually exhibiting or taking that kind of action in their lives. So, but I think the more focused you are, the more you're thinking about what you're doing right now and not being concerned about either the past or the future, the better your life will be. So for the contest, whoever wins the contest will have to do a little favor for me then too, but I want people to guess my age in years plus days. And I know some people have an advantage here that we're over at my house this weekend, so if anybody wants to take a guess at it. Robert? Okay. Anybody else? Okay. Anybody else? I'm disqualifying him. If there's nobody else, Robert, you're the winner. It's actually 60 years, 5.5 days. But what I want you to do is pay it forward. So here is a gift card for Starbucks. So there's enough on there for you to buy yourself a coffee. I know you love coffee. But somehow you're going to have to pay for somebody behind you in line. Either give it to the barista and let her ring it up, or pay for it. So do you accept the challenge? Sure. Okay. I didn't sign it. But you can tell me what you did. So Robert's the winner. So we're talking about my faith journey, so I thought I would just have a few bullets about what I plan to do in the future. So I consider that I'm living an extraordinary life right now, but things I plan to do in the future is to deepen my relationship with God by being a member here and just praying and doing my thing that way. Be a member of the Wayman family, which is a great thing to do. Be active in the KCC community. Live a healthy lifestyle, which I think I do. I'm getting closer and closer to finishing out my professional career, and I have a mindset that any future challenges that come up, either health-wise or whatever else-wise, I'm going to conquer those the same way I have been throughout my life. And then the last thing is to drink a good cup of coffee every day. And then one last slide here. the guy over here was my roommate in college after my friend Tom dropped out, and he's been a great friend ever since then. This picture was taken back in 1995, and I'm honored to say that his middle daughter is here. So when I make friends, I keep friends for a very long time, and so any questions?